Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Payne of the Abigail Phelps chapter DAR, and I'm here with author and talk show host Lisa Saunders, who is here to talk about the Cytomegalovirus, or CMV. Every hour in the United States, a child is born disabled by this virus. 91% of women surveyed have never heard of CMV, yet it causes more disabilities than Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, spinal bifida, and pediatric HIV/AIDS. It is the leading viral cause of birth defects. Lisa has worked diligently for years to increase awareness of CMV, and her goal is to help make it a standard practice of care to educate women of childbearing age on CMV prevention. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
I know that you are the parent representative for the Cytomegalovirus Foundation, the Congenital Cytomegalovirus Foundation, and that you have written many articles and booklets about it. And you've spent decades researching it and very knowledgeable about it. Could you just start by telling us exactly what CMV is and how it can affect babies born to mothers who have contracted CMV?
Well, CMV is a virus. It's a very common virus. The majority of population have had it by the time they're 40. But it's a virus you don't want to catch for the first time when you're pregnant or just prior to pregnancy. And the problem with mothers or pregnant women is that they're often caring for toddlers, and that's going to put you at higher risk. But it can be prevented if you know about it. It's just that a lot of women of childbearing age don't know that they shouldn't share a cup with their toddler, that they shouldn't kiss them on the mouth, they should kiss them on the cheek, that they shouldn't share a cookie with them. I was a daycare provider, a licensed daycare provider, where I had training, germ prevention, wash your hands. But I think if I had known that I was at increased risk for CMV, I would have been a lot more diligent about, after picking up toys that toddlers have put their saliva on, I would have washed my hands before grabbing an apple. I just would have been more diligent. And the reason that toddlers are shedding this virus is because they're all at that age where they're putting each other's toys in each other's mouths and their fingers in their mouths, and parents, adults have to wipe their noses, change their diapers, that kind of thing.
And what effect can it have on babies that are born?
It can be nothing. So just to be clear, 1 out of 150 babies is born with congenital CMV. Thankfully, most of those babies will be fine, but there is 20% of those babies will have permanent disabilities. My daughter was more severe. I probably caught it very, very early in the pregnancy. She was born, she had a very, very small damaged brain. They didn't think she had a brain when she was born. Her head was so small. So they did an X-ray, CAT scan. They saw calcium deposits, fluid throughout. So they knew it was either toxoplasmosis, which is that kitty litter virus you might have heard of, yes, or cytomegalovirus. And they tested me for both, and the cytomegalovirus showed that she and I both had it. So that's what caused her disabilities. And then I got literature stating that women who care for children, like in daycare centers, are at increased risk. And I was a licensed daycare provider and didn't know. Again, I'd heard of it vaguely. I just didn't know it was preventable. I didn't know anything about it. So that's why, and that was 1989. Elizabeth, they told me she would never roll over, never sit up, never speak, and she never did. She lived as about a 3-month-old for about 16 years. She was a lovely, once I got over the shock and the horror that this is my daughter's life, and I didn't want to dwell on, why did my doctors tell me? Because it's just too awful to think that it could have been prevented and nobody told me. I just couldn't think about it. I had to get on and be happy. I had a child to raise. I'm married. I have a husband. After about 8 months, I stopped wishing God would strike me dead, and got on with the business of living. And I just loved her. She eventually could look me in the eye. She did have cortical blindness from the virus, but if I looked up real close, she could see me. And she could hear somewhat when she was born, but she was gradually losing her hearing. But she was very cheerful, very happy, loved being with us, loved being tickled, loved being included in everything, going for car rides, loved going to special ed school. The only thing that the surgeries were terrible because when you have cerebral palsy, you're not walking and moving as much, and she couldn't move or walk at all. Her hands were like this. So we had to have several surgeries. Spinal fusion surgery was very difficult for her to recover from. That was awful. And hip reconstruction, because you're just sitting all like this. And what really got hard was the seizures. She developed epilepsy. She started around 8 years old, and then it just got progressively worse. And she did die of a seizure when she was 16. And I have to say, that's the one part I could never get used to, is epilepsy. That's a tough one, when you can't control it, because no drugs were working to control it. Right. But she had a severe case, so I don't want to scare everybody.
Right.
I hate to say the worst that usually happens is a hearing loss. And I know that's a terrible thing, but I'm just, it's not as bad as my daughter's. However, I do know a lot of children that are severe like she is, because I'm in this world, like other mothers trying to raise awareness so that it doesn't keep happening. And it keeps happening because it's not a standard of care to provide prevention information.
Now, Lisa, you mentioned the hearing loss. That may not be evident immediately after birth. Is that correct?
Correct. I did help get a law passed in Connecticut. The prevention education part didn't pass because that would have cost funds. But we got the part passed that will test a child. If the child fails their hearing screen, every baby in Connecticut has to have their hearing tested. If they fail the hearing screen, they will be tested for CMV. And then if it's found positive, there are ways that a doctor may decide to treat it. But that's going to miss some children that are going to eventually lose their hearing, but it just didn't get picked up because the baby can hear at birth.
And there's an antiviral that could be given.
Yes, it's shown to help severe children improve brain growth and hearing loss, but that would be up to the individual doctor to decide if the risks, if the benefits outweigh the risks.
It would be routinely given if, say, a child tested positive for it but had no symptoms.
They would never
do it as a preventative.
They would never give that antiviral if there was nothing wrong, because you might test a child for CMV and they have it, but they have absolutely no symptoms of it, temporary or permanent. They wouldn't give it then. But again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how that's going to progress.
All right, let's talk a little bit about who is at greatest risk.
Greatest risk are women of toddlers, but if the toddler's in a child care setting, or child care workers. Those are the women at greatest risk. Most people end up catching it 75% of women catch it from their toddlers. It's interesting because nurses work with very sick children, but they are no greater risk than the general population, and that's because they know to be washing their hands. The protocol of constant washing hands. When you remove your gloves, you're washing your hands again. I mean, they have the protocol necessary to do as much as you can to prevent the disease.
And Lisa, you and I have talked a little bit about this. We know the standards after you change a baby's diaper and certain things that you wash your hands thoroughly. But, mothers walk around picking up their children's toys all the time to put them back in the toy box. Well, that's contamination.
Right. That has saliva on it. I think the saliva on hard surfaces is about 30 minutes that the CMV will live on it, but you just need to wash your hands. I probably picked up toys all the time. I was running a daycare center in my home. I had up to 6 toddlers. I was picking up toys constantly. And I'm sure I grabbed an apple after picking up toys and didn't think twice.
Right.
Like I said, I knew to wash my hands, of course. My hands were raw from washing them with diapers. Anyway.
And we also so often use baby wipes, which were a wonderful invention, but we were cleaning up after messes with baby wipes, which are safe for the baby, but yet do not
do
anything
sterilize the surface.
You need
they do not sterilize. You need to make
both.
Sure that you're using something that sterilizes a surface, because baby wipes do clean it and they're easy. I get it. You're busy running after toddlers, but you just have to really have those precautions in place.
Right. And just how common is it? If you could
Well, like you said in your introduction, 1 baby every hour in the United States is disabled by it. 1 out of 750 babies born is born permanently disabled by congenital CMV. More people are more babies are born with it, but not permanently disabled. So it is the #1 viral cause of birth defects, way more common than Zika, more common than toxoplasmosis, the kitty litter virus that everybody knows about. And I don't know who that person is that got it so well known, don't change the kitty litter. I wish I could, because I keep searching, trying to find her so I could find out who did it, where it's just one of those things. And I think it's also more fun to tell people not to change the kitty litter, because who wants to change the kitty litter? And now you've got this great excuse, oh, I'm pregnant, I can't change the kitty litter. But it's a lot harder for, an OBGYN to say, don't kiss your toddler on the mouth. Don't share cookies with them. That's hard. Some moms don't want to hear that. But if they knew the truth, they would be diligent. It's an inconvenient truth, I'll say,
So these little children, toddlers, we're focusing on a group 2 and under. They carry the virus. They're shedding the virus, but they have no effects.
They don't have. Normally, it's a sign. If you have a normal immune system, you're not going to have any symptoms.
Okay.
So nobody would know you're sick. And they've done studies in daycare centers. If the child's in daycare, it said 44 to 100% of toddlers were shedding it at one time, and they can shed it for up to a couple of years. I was kind of shocked. They're excreting it. Like I said, they're not sick. When I was pregnant and I had cytomegalovirus, I was never sick. I have a good immune system. I never knew I was sick. So it was a complete shock when she was born and they said she has a very small head. And that's when I began learning about this.
And a woman can be tested to see if she currently has the virus.
Right.
And we probably all had it at some point, but there
when
could be...
When we're older, we've had it probably.
Right. So this may influence a woman's decision of when to conceive. If they test very positively, they recommend that you wait a certain amount of time.
Right, and then they'll probably get you tested again. If you're a daycare provider, you certainly... You can get a blood test to find out if you've ever had it. I mean, that's what the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends, asking your doctor for a blood test and assess your risk. Unfortunately, that does give you some protection, but there are other strains of it. So even though you can find out if you're somewhat protected, the big thing is prevention, prevention, prevention. So even if you're protected, you still can't be grabbing your toddler's cookies, and if your toddler takes a sip from your cup, I get it, you're tired, but you need to go get another cup.
Oh, good advice. Okay, now let's talk about the prevention. I know you've worked very hard at promoting prevention literature and ideas. I know this is a wonderful little book that you shared with me today, Once Upon a Placemat. Would you tell us about that and how you go about spreading the word on this, increasing awareness?
Well, I decided that, I've written a book about my daughter's life, Anything But a Dog, the perfect pet for a girl with congenital cytomegalovirus. And there, if you like pets and dogs, you're going to find out about the virus and how to prevent it. But I thought, how am I going to prevent it in the young children? Because it's really moms that might have no clue that they should pick up this book, you know what I mean? Because they might be afraid to read about a handicapped child, But that's a fairy tale, Once Upon a Placemat, a table-setting tale. It's a fairy tale about a grandmother teaching her granddaughter how to set the table. And the granddaughter doesn't want to help because she's lazy. And she said, you set it and I'll just watch. And the grandma said, no, I'll tell you a story if you help me set it. But first she has the granddaughter wash her hands. You don't want those naughty germs to get in your mouth. And then as she's explaining why you have to put the knife with his teeth facing the plate, because the knife is married to Mrs. Spoon and he's afraid the dish will run away with the spoon because he's heard of that fairy, that little nursery rhyme. So I try in a fun way to teach a child how to set the table, and I made it a coloring book, and then I'm hoping the child colors it, maybe in daycare center, preschool, and then brings it home to mom, and then she's reading the fairy tale again to her child because they like the idea of their child learning how to set the table. And then, by the way, Miss Cup is making this statement. The other utensils don't really like Miss Cup because she's constantly talking about, I hate when people share me and don't give me a bath. Don't they know about germs? So she just makes a little comment, and the other utensils think she's a little snooty, but, and then you don't find out into the appendix. I'm hoping the moms will read the appendix. Why, Miss Cup, doesn't want to be shared, even with mothers and children, because a lot of people share cups. So I'm trying to do it in a fun way and start young.
Well, this is a good approach because, of course, you want to instill some habits in the children, but you also want the parents to get the message. And the overlooked part, how about the women that work in daycare centers? Are they counseled on this? What risk
Usually
they might...
not, and that's my focus right now. Now that I got the bill passed as much as I could, I get the bill passed. The prevention education part didn't pass, like I said, because of funds. So now I'm thinking, if I could just get daycare centers to abide by the recommendations made by the American Academy of Pediatrics to counsel their workers, if I can get them to do that, they don't even know about CMV. So how can they counsel their employees about it if they don't even know about it? So I'm trying to reach directors of daycare centers and licensing bodies to get them to know this information, because then if they counsel their employees, just imagine if they have a parent meeting for new parents who bring their child, and they could maybe share it with them, or maybe there could be a flyer on the wall talking about toddlers are cute, but they might have be excreting CMV. Everybody wash your hands, don't share cups with them. So I'm thinking if daycare employees know about it, I'm hoping they would educate the parents picking up the child. So that could be one way, until doctors make this a standard practice of care. It could be one way to get it in there, because all I'm asking them to do is abide by the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Now, other countries have been more proactive about this. I think I read Australia and
Queensland, Australia, they have a policy that if you think you might become pregnant or are pregnant, you are only allowed to work with children. You're not allowed to work professionally with children under 2. Germany has a very strict law on how you employ pregnant women. Women are given a test to see their antibodies for the disease, and if they don't have any antibodies for it, they are actually forbidden to work with children professionally under the age of 3.
And the focus on that age is because you'd be more likely to be coming in contact with
their saliva and urine, because I think there's some differences on which children are the most likely to be shedding it, but I think the latest consensus is 2 and under, or that they're, I don't know. So that's why you see a difference in the 2 countries. One is 2, one is 3. I mean, every scientist, every country needs to figure out the latest research to decide what they're going to do, and as far as the age. So that's why I just use the age. That's why I say toddler, because it's more general. You kind of get it, that it's somebody that still needs their nose wiped.
Exactly.
And has drool all over the place.
A lot of personal care.
Yeah.
Well, I had never heard of this, and, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I worked in a preschool, I did care for toddlers for a time, and never knew about this. Doctors counsel pregnant women about the dangers of consuming alcohol, smoking, certain medications, changing the cat's litter box, and other risks. Why doesn't every woman simply receive a brochure on CMV at that time when they're...
I don't know. I'm trying to change that. I have to say that used to be their policy. ACOG, I can never remember if I'm saying it right, American College of Gynecology, or something like that. Anyway, they recommended that OBGYNs counsel their patients on it. But they did a survey and found out less than 50% are actually counseling. And now they've changed their policy that they find it could be burdensome to tell women about this, could frighten them. They might find, what's the point? My toddler, is all over, has saliva all over the place. But there are studies, 4 studies have been done that I know of, and a doctor summarized these studies in a wonderful article, and it showed that studies have shown that if a woman knows she's pregnant, knows that their CMV is a problem, she can reduce her chances of contracting it by 75%. Mm-hmm. So no, nothing's 100%. Mm-hmm. But if I had at least known, maybe 75% chance that I wouldn't have contracted this virus, when I was pregnant, and my daughter wouldn't have had to suffer.
Well, part of it may be they don't want to alarm people.
They don't want to
I'd rather be alarmed than uninformed.
Right, because that's part of the thing. They don't want to alarm them. There's no vaccine. I did a list of, like I said, what I told you is the reasons I looked up that I've, because one OBGYN is honest. This was even before they changed it. She said the things I'm supposed to tell them about in the first visit could take 2 hours and scare them to death. Yeah. But I appreciated her honesty. So if we can find out what are the issues so that we can work with them, because I get it. Who wants to... No doctor wants to be told what to do. I don't like to be told what to do. I never would have gotten a law passed if I could have gotten it done some other way. You know, but I said, like, I'd written this book, I'd written other articles, and yes, it would be blurbs of people finding out. Other mothers like me have been trying, but until you can make it policy,
right?
You know.
Well, you have done so much. I mean, just getting that bill signed by Governor Malloy, I guess it's Public Act Bill 1510, and that took place in 2015.
Right.
You can be really proud of yourself because that could not have been easy. Could you
No.
tell us a little bit about that road?
Well, as we discussed, I am a daughter of the American Revolution. I like history, but I don't really know what's going on currently. I'm just interested in long dead people. So I don't know how the government works. So that was a big learning curve. The way this all happened for me is that I get Google alerts on congenital CMV, and suddenly in 2013, I get a Google alert that Utah passed a law requiring CMV prevention education plus testing of children that don't pass their hearing screen. And I thought, how on earth did they do that? You're kidding me. Maybe it's a law I need to get passed. So then I took that law, Googled it, found it, and I contacted them. I just downloaded it and I gave it to my representative. But I didn't even know who like I said, it's embarrassing. I didn't even know who my representative was. So I went to the only person I knew in government, and that's the dog license lady. So I went to her at town hall, and I hate to admit to people that I don't know how our government works. So I said to her, when I was getting my dog's license, can you tell me how I can get a bill passed? Like, how does that even work? And she said, well, you need to contact your representative. I said, who's that? So she told me who it was. She gave me her address because that's public knowledge. So not to be a stalker or anything, but I dropped a copy of my book off at her house in Noank, and with a copy of Utah's bill, of their law. And then I called her, left messages, emailed her. I'd like you to know about this, and I really want to get this passed in Connecticut. And then I contacted Grace Magazine, which is of the New London Day. With every year I write about my daughter would have been this age if she had lived. You know, I kind of I update my blog every year, and I sent that to her, and the newspaper got interested in doing an article. So then I always take my articles that I get in the newspapers about it, and then I gave that to her. And so then I actually got a letter copied to me that she had sent it to the Public Health Committee. Anyway, so that's for 2014. Then I learned, oh gosh, I have to get it passed by the House. I have to go testify to the Public Health Committee in Hartford. And I live in Mystic, Connecticut, and I hate driving in highways and changing lanes. Well, I found it very stressful driving through Hartford, changing lanes to get to that place so I could testify, but I did. I was the only one who testified because mothers are too busy taking care of their sick children. You know, so they're passionate about it. But if your child's alive, it's very hard to do this work because they need so much care. But I met a doctor came to see me, and she got really motivated to help on this issue. She's the Connecticut chapter champion for, I never say it right, Eddie, they call it, but anyway, about hearing, because it's a major cause of hearing loss. Anyway, so then we went from there trying to get it passed the House, but the Senate never brought it to a vote. So then 2014, I had to start all over again. Oh, wow. So.
Well, Lisa, you are an amazing woman, because I know this wasn't easy, and you've made such a good beginning, but there's more to be done.
There's so much more to be done.
Could you tell us if the viewer wants to learn more about CMV, what would you recommend that they do?
They can go to first of all, they can just Google it and they'll find out a lot on the CDC website. And also, there's a lot of good downloadable flyers on the National CMV Foundation website. So they can go there. They can go to my blog, which I know you'll be giving them that information, because I list a lot of my resources on there as well. Because I kind of get a lot of resources from many foundations, actually.
Well, Lisa, we want to thank you so much for coming here today and giving this important information. I think all women of childbearing age should at least have this information on prevention. And the Abigail Phelps chapter would like you to have this donation that will enable you to take a daycare center of your choice and go there and educate the staff and parents and provide literature. And hopefully, even if that makes a difference in just the life of one child, then
thank you.
That's
thank you so
very,
much.
very important. So for more information on CMV, you can visit Lisa's blog. And thank you so much, Lisa. It was a pleasure talking
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.